When I think about faithfulness, I look at it as a devotion to someone. In this regard, I think my parents have been a great example of faithfulness. I can always know as a small child that they would believe in me, encourage me, and give me the confidence to do anything I wanted to do, even the craziest of things like going to Texas A&M. But they have encouraged me along the way and have shown me that through their love and through trusting them, that they will always have my back.
Faithfulness. Just this week in Decatur, Georgia, Antoinette Tuff talked a gunman out of firing his automatic rifle with almost 500 rounds of ammunition. With school starting tomorrow for many students and teachers like myself, hearing how Antoinette was able to maintain composure with a gunman and save so many lives is remarkable. In interviews following this event, she said God sent people in her path to help her through life, and that the gunman needed her at that moment. Antoinette said God brought her from hopeless to hope. It was Antoinette's faith in God that ultimately enabled her to save the lives of so many children. Faithfulness. When I think about faithfulness, I think about my old soccer team, the Fire Ants. We didn't win many games, but we still had faith, and we tried our best, and eventually we got second place in our league.
Faithfulness is a hard word for me to understand, but after my parents read me the definition, I thought of when my brother asked me to play baseball with him, and I don't really want to, but I've already promised him I will. I try to keep that promise, even though sometimes I don't.
One of our own gentle giants here at First United Methodist Church, Reverend Chuck Graff. He has a true spirit, a loving, kind heart, and he exhibited that one day when he drove up to Denton at 6:30 in the morning to be with my family as my mother was undergoing heart surgery. He sat there in the room, he grabbed our hands, and through his prayer, we gained strength and confidence that all was going to go well.
Gentleness. My grandfather was one of the strongest people I've ever known. You might not think of gentleness and strength together, but for me, gentleness is a characteristic of someone who exudes grace. When my grandfather became sick, he lived the final years of his life with such humility and grace. When he was in ICU a few minutes after midnight, he looked up at the clock and started singing. He was singing Happy Birthday to my grandmother, his wife of 65 years. At that moment, when we were all unsure about how much longer he would live, he wasn't thinking of himself struggling to survive, but of honoring and loving his wife. He wasn't able to give her a wrapped gift that year, but he gave us all a glimpse of the gift of gentleness and grace. Gentleness. When I think of gentleness, I think of my sisters as babies. I always had to be very gentle with them so I wouldn't upset them. And I still have to be gentle to them.
Gentleness. When my cat Roxy climbs into my lap at night, I have to be gentle with her or she'll jump out of my lap and may get hurt.
Self-control. At this time in my life, as I look toward a healthier me, self-control means not having that donut in the morning.
Self-control is all about strategy, and I'm reminded of a study at Stanford University where children were given one marshmallow. Now, they were supposed to wait for 15 minutes and not eat the marshmallow, and if they didn't, they would get a second marshmallow. 30% of those students were able to have self-control. So then they followed them once they reached high school, and studies showed that those students with self-control had 210 points higher on average on their SATs. And now, more than 30 years later, that same group have more well-rounded lives. So researchers say the key is to have strategy in order to maintain self-control. Self-control. Whenever I think of self-control, I think of selling Girl Scout cookies and not being able to open the boxes or eat the cookies.
Self-control. At church during the service, I have to use self-control so that I don't distract others and get in trouble.